us rise for the aspiration.
Victorious Buddha, compassionate ones, throughout the infinite worlds of the 10 directions, grant your blessings so that the inner and outer work that I accomplish today bears the fruits that multiply beyond imagining and extend to the very limits of this existence to benefit myself, the ones I love, and the countless other beings of the sixth realm.
All right. Yeah. All right. Let's do a little bow and sit together. Okay. So let's take some time to settle in. Let's just take a deep breath and relax a little bit before we begin. Some of us, I guess, the holidays can be crazy. It's a bit different this year too. So, how's it been going for you guys? Did you enjoy a normal celebration, or was it complicated around your parts?
I ate food, so I was happy.
That's what I do. Eat food.
Yes.
Christmas.
Yeah, I think that's what I've been doing all year. I've been eating food.
Yeah, but you
All
say
right.
Christmas,
So yeah,
you eat way too much food.
right. So it was quiet on my side as well. Just seeing my parents a little bit and spent it with our children.
Yeah,
And
same here. Only a few friends. Christmas.
great. So I hope you did enjoy yourself and that life has been treating you good during this holiday. We're about to start
Yes.
a new year, and I didn't know if I was going to have this session actually because I thought, well, usually people are all over the place during the holidays, but I guess because of the pandemic, it changed the game a little bit. So thank you for being here. I think it's quite a good attendance considering the context. You even have some new people, which I would like to welcome officially to your first session of our Sangha. Uh, don't be too spooked if it feels a bit exotic. As I like to remind everybody, Buddhism is much more a philosophy than it is a religion, and the iconography that we use are mainly symbols for internal things. So it's a science, an ancient wisdom about the mind. So that's mainly what we learn about here. We learn about our own mind and zero belief and zero disguise required. So you can relax and feel easy. We do have this protocol out of respect for the work that's being done here, and also to kind of preserve order because sometimes we have a lot of people, so it helps to enter and exit the shrine like in order fashion. Today we're going to have a very short read. I don't know if it's even 2 pages in our Teaching of Buddha book, and Julia's going to read that for us. The theme is causation. So let's start with this, and then I will try to improvise a little commentary on it. Because I feel, well, it left me hungry when I read it, so I feel we need to expand a little bit on the theme. So, so whenever you're ready, yeah.
Causation. There are causes for all human suffering, and there is a way by which they may be ended, because everything in the world is the result of a vast concurrence of causes and conditions, and everything disappears as these causes and conditions change, pass away. Rain falls, wind blows, plants bloom, leaves mature and are blown away. These phenomena are all interrelated with causes and conditions, and are brought about by them and disappear as the causes and conditions change. One is born through the conditions of parentage. His body is nourished by food. His spirit is nurtured by teaching and experience. Therefore, both flesh and spirit are related to conditions and are changed as conditions change. As a net is made up by a series of knots, so everything in this world is connected by a series of knots. If anyone thinks that the mesh of a net is an independent, isolated thing, he is mistaken. It is called a net because it is made up of a series of connected meshes, and each mesh has its place and responsibilities in relation to other meshes. Blossoms come about because of a series of conditions that lead up to their blooming. Leaves are blown away because a series of conditions lead up to it. Blossoms do not appear independently, nor does a leaf fall of itself out of its season. So everything has its coming forth and passing away. Nothing can be independent without any change. It is the everlasting and unchanging rule of this world that everything is created by a series of causes and conditions, and everything disappears by the same rule. Everything changes, nothing remains constant.
Alright, so it feels even shorter when I'm not the one reading it. Thank you, Julia. Alright, so what is the meaning of this in Buddhism? Why do we speak about causation? And I think to get a good sense of that, I will just drift away from the book a little bit and give you different angles on that topic. So, first things first, causation is about interdependence. It's about nothing in this world really spontaneously existing. It's it's basically explaining that the world is a big cause and effect chain. So that's the first way we can look at causation here, simply as the cause component of this cause and effect chain. So our world, as described by this type of causation, it would be like living on a giant pool table or billiard, depending on what you call it where you live. So, for example, the cause would be the deliberate action of setting the white ball in motion towards another to pocket. Then a chain reaction would probably follow among other balls within this restricted environment of the table. So if I was given all the data, for example, the strength of the strike and the angle and the position on the cue ball and all of that, and all the right formulas, um, as a good physicist armed with a computer, I could probably calculate the exact effect of each cause and could therefore predict the end position of each ball before they even stop moving. So, although our world is infinitely more complex than a pool table, there is an element of predictability with this type of causation that would give birth to an A plus B equals C type of world. It's the view of science, especially Newtonian physics, that tends to represent our world in this way. And if you think about it, the Big Bang Theory is pretty much like the initial break at the beginning of a pool game. And I must say that this type of cause and effect feels quite logical too. We can even see it happening all around us. I mean, you drop an egg, it breaks, and it oozes, and that's just what's going to happen. It's predictable. The only problem is that these deterministic theories always leave out something important: the initial cause, the thing, force, or person that set the cue ball in motion in the beginning, or the the thing that was before the Big Bang, in other words. So it's funny to me that although this is important, Buddhism, on the other hand, does not even try to find this initial cause. Ask a master how it all began, and he will probably just tell you that he doesn't know, or that, as far as he is concerned, it never began. So they will just reject the beginning altogether. So you can see cause and effect work, but there is this question that we have no answer for. And a lot of the world's religion are built around an explanation of creation and an explanation of how life came about in this universe. But another way to look at causation is to reflect on the causes that bring about the things around us. For example, man-made objects require natural resources that are then transformed by somebody who has the knowledge and the skills, the tools and the equipment, the time and the dedication. So that's a lot of ingredients here coming together to, let's say, build a chair or build a table. You could not put these ingredients, let's say the ingredients to build a smartphone, in a little black pouch, mysterious little black pouch, and shake it until you get the desired outcome. So although like all of the causes are in there, we're still missing some conditions. The phone itself does not reside in any of the individual pieces. The recipe is missing. So it needs to be designed, planned, built, and held together by a number of different forces that won't just come about by shaking the pouch. As living things, we are not really different. Plants need healthy soil, fresh air, water in sufficient quantity, sunlight, and an entire ecosystem to survive. These are the conditions for life. But a cause, the seed planted in the ground, is also required. In fact, I think this is a bit subtle but important. It could be said that the true cause of anything is the condition that is still missing, the one that will set everything else in motion. So it is very relative. For example, some seeds lay dormant in the desert, and for months at a time, nothing happens. Then heavy rainfalls bring these seeds to life and make the entire desert bloom. So in that case, what was the cause of the flowers blooming in the desert? Was it the seeds, or was it rather the rainfall? So in this case, I would propose that this time the true cause of the seed blooming is the water. But in a way, they're inseparable. And this is what Thich Nhat Hanh brilliantly called interbeing. So it is a state where we recognize that different and seemingly independent phenomenon can only exist through one another. When we think about living and breathing animals, then a notion of ancestry usually also gets introduced. We rarely think about the pollen, the bees, and the fruits that eventually bring about the seeds because, let's It's simply not how we reproduce as human beings. However, we all understand intuitively that animals need parents, and that without just one of their ancestors, they would never have existed. Have you ever thought of that? 7, 12, or any number of generations ago, if any of your male or female ancestor had died before they could give birth to children, or if any of those children were not cared for properly and died too young, then you would not be here. Do you realize how incredibly lucky it is that you exist at all in your current configuration? Animals also need food, air, water, and warmth to stay alive, obviously. So, to simplify it quite a bit, plants, animals, and humans all need a favorable environment, and the environment needs them to thrive too. And this is a delicate balance. Some people, for example, Alan Watts, used to refer to Buddhism as the religion of ecology because there is such an elevated consciousness about how we are part of the world and how we interact with it. And as you know, many Buddhists are vegetarian and non-violent and are very respectful of their environments. There are stories of where construction sites being stopped in Tibet because an earthworm had been killed. So the Buddhists really understand the delicate balance of the universe and try to work with it rather than compete with it. Now we even have man-made virtual worlds, which we're all sitting in one right now, and that is amazing. But have we ever considered how incredibly complex and unlikely they are? A platform like this one requires graphics and programming and a good computer with a good graphic adapter to run and specialized equipment such as headsets and controllers and a microphone. Also a good internet connection, which requires in turn a massive telecommunication infrastructure and countries to be interconnected and trade agreements for that matter. None of it would be possible without electronics, and electronics wouldn't even exist without the discovery and the mastery of electrical currents. And then, of course, you need players that, as we have already established, are kind of rare and dependent on a fragile lineage. And on top of it, they need to be interested in technology and that sort of experiences. So a lot of different factors mean that a lot of things could go wrong. Computers overheat, wires break, connections cut, and sometimes players don't show up. If you remove any of these conditions, the experience would either become impossible, difficult, or quite different. And this is what interbeing is all about. This session wouldn't be possible without all of the causes and conditions being present. If none of you were here, I wouldn't hold the session. But also, if you were not here, as far as you're concerned, this session wouldn't exist. So that kind of brings back the quantum observer, where they say that the act of observing something also brings it into existence. The fact that you're looking at it manifests it. And the way I like to think about that is if you're playing hide and seek with a little kid and they're hiding behind a wall, but like you can see their nose and their feet uh, that are just over the ledge. You can see that they're there. But then when you turn around and you look at them straight, then they will move instantly and hide a little deeper, a little farther. So in a way, the consciousness in our universe kind of acts like this. And through observing and through moving into the world answers to us. Now, there are schools of thought that say, for example, that you can manifest your thoughts and that you can, by wishing something very, for something very strongly, you can bring it about, make it real. And I don't disagree with that. In fact, it's quite plain to see. It's all over. It's everywhere. Thoughts are the seeds of action, and actions uh, could bring about, for example, the construction of a house, and then the house will manifest. So it's nothing magical. It's not as if you concentrate on that 3 days a week, and then all of a sudden it will spontaneously manifest across the street. Now, the idea there is that individually and also collectively, what we think reshapes the world one bit at a time. And so, in that conception, our thoughts are a great cause for the world because of the quantity of human beings on Earth, because of our size, and because of our technological means. We can really change the face of our planet. Yeah, but when we think about VR, the insane complexity involved is a joke compared to the type of interdependence that our universe or just our planet is undergoing at every moment. So it makes us realize that Edward Lawrence's butterfly effect is much more than just a theory. The slightest little thing happening in the northern hemisphere could definitely affect something else in the southern hemisphere. So while all of this is very interesting and can begin to shake our worldview quite a bit, I also like to make causation a little bit more personal. For example, let's just think about our life. And this is kind of a traditional Zen question. Like, what did your face look like before you were born? I would probably just ask, where were you before you were born? Were you born again somewhere else? Were you in the same state? Were you something else? Did you exist at all? Maybe not. And last time at the cafe, I asked this question too, which is one of my favorite. It's a question that I have asked myself a long time ago and that I'm now asking people that I discuss with. So I'd like to ask, how many atoms did you add to the universe when you were born? How many atoms will you take with you when you die? So try and think, are you an act of creation or an act of transformation? Like, were you alive in your father or in your mother? Were you in the egg or in the sperm? Or in both? Or in neither? And what happened when they collided? Was it the Big Bang that produced you? Take maybe a moment to think about the different things that keep you alive every day. How many people are involved just in feeding you? You know that the food on your plate travels thousands of miles to get in there. Doesn't matter if it's fruits or vegetables or meat. It probably all went through a plane and a truck and a number of factories before it reached you. It was also distributed, sold and resold. Do you ever think about the infrastructure that is provided to you? The road, the electricity, the aqueduct, the schools, the workplaces, all of the buildings that you use for work or to entertain yourself, to lodge yourself. Do you ever realize just how dependent on everyone else we are? there is this myth that I think was partly born from the American dream, where many of us are looking to be independent and autonomous, which is a ridiculous notion. It is absolutely ridiculous. Uh, I think you should try to care for your own needs as much as you can. I think you should do that in a way that is respectful to the environment and in a minimalistic fashion, where you don't impact the environment too much and take more than you need. But apart from this, who will bring you up? You cannot be independent from the cradle, and probably you cannot heal yourself when you fall sick completely without hospitals and doctors. And so we depend on one another throughout our life, from breakfast to dinner, and even to play a board game on Saturdays. It's much more fun. There are more than one of us. So that's one thing to think about. We are not only caused by many different factors, but we are kept alive by an incredible amount of causes and conditions too. If you were to remove some of them, we would simply disappear. And this is what's worrying many of us in global warming or other big, large-scale crises like that. We seem to be removing some conditions that are essential to human lives sometimes. But we are resilient to a point. Also, so this is, what we are, but what about our experience of the world, or our experience of ourselves? How about the way we experience our world? The whole universe has to go through our five senses, doesn't it? What else do we have to relate with the world? Just these five little holes, little gates, little doors, call them whatever you want. But this is from these that the entire universe enters you. It seems little. It seems to be not many gates to absorb an entire universe. But as humans, these are pretty much our only inputs. Since I've worked so many years in the IT field, I like to think of our sensory organs as our keyboard and mouse and microphone, or whatever inputs that we would use on a computer to get the information in. This is how we use our five senses, basically. So, but what causes our senses to activate? Are they on all the time? Are they aware of everything all of the time? I'd say that if you really take the time to think about it, our senses mostly detect changes. And why? Because the universe is a process that is changing all the time. These causes and these conditions are subtly moving around us all the time. And so our senses detect these subtle movements and pass them to our mind, where they are used to construct our reality. So let's consider, for example, the cause of music. Music is just a succession of sounds in silence. But what is sound made of? Sound is made of changes in amplitude and in frequency. And it's basically the pressure in the air that is changing in strength and in tonality that our tympans detect. And so we receive a bunch of disconnected signals. You could be listening to a sound and hearing the jack drill working in the street, and yet your brain will kind of separate these, and it will say, well, this is part of a pattern that I recognize as a sound. there is something repeating there. There's a chorus. It's the same instrument, so this belongs together, and then it will take the other stimuli and say, okay, this is the jack drum. So you see how indirect our experience of reality is through the senses. Senses are dumb, just like a keyboard is dumb. Their job is just to retransmit information. And it is our brain or our consciousness or thinking process or whatever you call it that really pieces it back together. If we would consider the cause of a movie or a movement, let's say just the cause of a movement. So this is something that we perceive with our sight. And the way that sights work is, imagine if it was just like a very blurry 2D picture. Then you wouldn't know what is a person and what is a tree and what is a house. But what your brain does is that it starts analyzing the sight. And it says, okay, so this patch here is all white, so that must be a wall. And here there is something on top of the white wall, and it has a certain silhouette and a certain pattern to it. So that looks like a body. That must be somebody. And then you do pretty much the same with a tree. But your brain cannot even be sure that his understanding of this two-dimension picture is right unless it starts moving. So when the person starts moving and you see that it flexes at the elbow, that it flexes at the knee, that the spine is behaving like a spine and the head like a head, only when you have a succession of photographs can you say, okay, this is definitely a human and this is definitely a house because it's still and it has the properties of a house. So again, we piece now after we have pieced an auditory story. Now we are piecing a visual story. And that's how we fool ourselves with movies as well. We have just a certain number of frames per second that are being shown to us, and we kind of and same thing for the sounds that accompany the movie, and we just take these frames that skip and we build them together into something fluid in our mind. So, how fluid is reality truly? What if reality was always like blinking with possibilities everywhere, and every time you open your eyes, you are just making a snapshot of this? But that when my eyes are closed, you're actually floating in the ceiling. Who knows? Then there is the cause of smells, and there's something very interesting about smells, and it is the blindness of smells. Ever notice when you put like a perfume and you wear it for a while, then you stop smelling it? Same thing if you have dogs or cats or whatever animal at home. People that walk in your home might smell the dog like first thing, but you're so used to it that you don't smell the animal anymore. So our brain does that to everything that doesn't move. If you pick a point in your room and you just start to fixate on it, you will see that elements on the outside of your field of view will start to disappear. It will kind of turn black and you will concentrate on just the point that you're looking at. But even this, if you stare long enough, will start disappearing because the brain is not interested about static things. So a smell, let's say, that stays the same will disappear. A sound, let's say there's a background in your neighborhood. Probably you don't hear it anymore. It's just somebody that comes from outside will notice this because you hear it all the time. So your brain is suppressing that. Same thing for the taste in your mouth. Right? We detect the changes in taste. And touch is not much. If you touch a surface in front of you, it doesn't give you a lot of information. Maybe temperature, and we know from physics that what happens between a hot body and a cold body is there's actually a heat transfer there. So that's a change as well. But if you really want to use your sense of touch, what you will have to do is you will have to move your hand. You will have to move your finger, and then you will be able to tell if it's a rough or a soft surface, if it's hot, if it's cold, if it slides or if it doesn't. So you will get a bunch of other information if it's hard or if it's soft, right? So you will get all of these information from moving your hand more than anything. So again, it seems to indicate that our five senses react more than anything to change. But that's another thing, and that might be the most interesting part of looking at ourselves. I don't know if you are aware of that, but in Buddhist literature, the mind is actually considered a sense. So, like your sixth sense is to be aware of your own thoughts and emotion. So, I guess my question there would be, where do thoughts come from? And maybe I would like to hear you guys about that. Where do you think that thoughts come from? One at a time, please.
The mind.
The mind. What is the mind?
Well, it's a good question. I don't know.
I don't mind.
You don't mind? Great.
Oh, I see what you did there.
I
So,
think the brain.
So the brain. Yes. We have
They
a
call
little
it
chat.
heart mind, kokoro in Japanese.
oh,
Yes. The
Kokoro.
heart mind. So there would be a notion of emotion there, maybe. And somebody said the brain. Actually, we had this chat not long ago, but I'll repeat for those who were not there. Uh, there's no proof, as far as science is concerned, so far that consciousness resides in the brain. That's kind of how we feel it, because we tend to look with our eyes, and so as the observer, we kind of feel that we're sitting right behind our eyes, and also you can see electrical activity happening in the brain when thoughts or emotions are being processed. But who knows if the brain lights up because it's been receiving information or because it's producing information. So we don't exactly know that. It's not been demonstrated beyond a doubt so far. So if we make a simplistic answer, thoughts come from the past. And that is a very, very important thing to remember. Thoughts are ever from the past. Your thoughts are basically made of your knowledge, which you have acquired in the past through experiences that also happened in the past. And even if you're thinking about the future, you are still using all of these past references to try and guess what your future is going to look like. So thoughts are forever conditioned by experiences that you've had before, and also by what your parents have taught you, and the way you were programmed by them and by your environment and by society. And thought, I'm afraid, is pretty much something dead. Thoughts can be useful because they provide all of these references, but they're not of the now, they're not of these moments. They're more like a recipe to make muffins that we have memorized a long time ago so that we can keep on making muffins. And to apply ancient thoughts or ancient conclusions to a new situation is basically where we fail to use our intelligence. Now, what is causing thought? Why do thought keep on appearing in our mind? And One answer to that is that we are constantly observing the world and looking in our database, so to speak, for something similar, something that we could extrapolate an appropriate response from. So it's not even conscious, you know. You could look at something blue, a blue bird, for example, and then the database query will launch in the background, and you will start considering every birds and every little blue things and every flying things that you have seen throughout the course of your life. And then, if you're lucky, it will return a match, and you will say, "Oh, that's a blue jay," because it fits with the flying bird blue thing, and then you're convinced it's a blue jay. Although it could be, I don't know, a cousin of the blue jay that looks very similar to it. So in that case, you would be using a dead answer to a living problem, a living question. But that's what happens. Everything that you look at, everything that you come in contact with in your daily life kind of launches these queries in the background, and your brain is kind of always looking for these solutions. Now there's another kind of thought, and these are the probably like the new programming. When something unexpected happens, when you have zero references, then I would probably call that trauma. So you are faced with a new situation, it's unexpected, it's emotional, you're surprised, you don't really know how to handle it, and it makes an impression on you. It imprints your brain. But the way that this imprint is done is not like all at once. Let's say, for example, you were at work and somebody picked up a fight with you, and you were not expecting that, and even least from that person. Then the event will be very emotional, and your head might start spinning. You might start thinking about this event during work and after work, and even bring it to sleep and maybe the next day. Why? Because it's not yet completely processed and integrated. It has two very important characteristics. One is that it doesn't make sense. You had no reference about it. And second, it was emotional. And something really is just emotional when it's not done processing. That's kind of how PTSD works as well. PTSD often happens when my head wants something and my heart wants something else, but I am forced to act in contradiction with one or the two of these. And so my mind has a lot of trouble making sense of all of that. It's very emotional, and it kind of sticks to your head, and it kind of spins for a long, long time until you can incorporate it and accept it and let it go. Let go of the emotional component and just write the fact in your personal history. So long story short, thoughts are overrated. We tend to believe them as this wise, all-knowing thing that we have in our head, but that's not really what they are. They are more the stuff of methodology, of recipes. They're more a tool that you can use. And as you can see, the things that cause our thoughts are pretty automatic. We don't use our thinking process that much voluntarily, like to solve a math equation where we will just recall the method of our own accord to achieve a result. But we do that too, obviously. It's just not the main thing. The conscious mind, I think, is like 5% of our thinking process, and like what's really driving the car is the unconscious process. So just keep in mind that even when you think of your personality and your mental responses, and this again is just like an agglomerate. It's just a bunch of things coming together from your life experiences, and it has no solidity whatsoever. Some people tell others, "Oh, I like you the way you are, never change." Well, please do change. Because if you never change, you're pretty much stuck with same recipe from forever, and you're not allowing the causes to affect and transform you the way you should evolve. Then, if we move towards things that are a little bit more subtle, our mind, our heart mind, as Julia was saying, um, goes through some experiences. And these experiences are not physical, but nonetheless, they're pretty real. For example, the emotion of fear. What causes fear? That's another question for you guys. Where does fear come from?
From the unknown?
From the unknown. That's a good answer.
The will
Yes,
to stay
Malcolm.
alive.
Pain.
Yes.
To might feel pain. To might feel negative experiences.
So Kaida says the anticipation of death, and you say the anticipation of pain. And Malka, were you about to say something? I saw your head in the air. Your hand.
Yeah, I was about to say that I think fear is our protective mechanism that was created with us together to help us survive. As
Right.
our
So
soul
that's
go down to fourth dimension, we have many ways to leave this dimension. So maybe this was just, like a safety mechanism.
right. So a protection mechanism from, I would guess, pain and death again. And
People usually feel something they don't understand. Rather
so
than trying to
yeah, like
understand it, they try to get rid of it or run away.
right. Xalgo, do you
I
want to
think
say something?
fear comes from attachments and desires also, like losing something,
Wow.
for example,
So
or not getting something.
right. So these are all very good answers, actually. Um, Fear, but there's a twist. There's a twist that we can think about, and it is very central to Buddhist teaching. Fear in Buddhism is the number one poison. So it gives birth to desire and then frustration or anger. So actually, in Buddhism, if you take the time to analyze it very well, there is pretty much only like two emotions, and one is fear, and the other one I would just call love, for lack of a better word. But and then on the spectrum, everything else exists. So I would concur with most of you and say that fear is actually that we dread the end of the known. So there is desire and attachment, as Xalgo was saying. So I'm attached to life. I'm attached to what I know, and whatever can come and change that is something that I'm going to be wary of. But there is a deeper teaching about fear. The root cause of fear would be simply the existence of other. And this kind of meets in the middle with the teachings about emptiness in Buddhism. That if there is no other, then there is no fear. If there is not an external something that can come and cut my flow, cut my life, cut my health, cut my desires, or whatever, then there is no threat. Also, if there is no other, if there is not no objects to be desired, if there is no other person to envy, if there is nothing else that I could want, then how would there be any type of competition? I would just be whole. And so the cause of fear is the perception of other, And this is why causation is so important in Buddhism, is that if you truly start reflecting on how you are interconnected with everything, and we didn't go too far in our analysis, but let's do it for just a second. We've been talking about the vegetables and the plants and the people and the animals. But do we realize that none of these would happen without planet Earth, without planet Earth atmosphere? And planet Earth's atmosphere wouldn't happen without the solar system, and without our galaxy, and without the universe. And you guys know that we're all made of stardust, right? Carbon is everywhere in the universe. So we're just little pieces of star, fragments of star, moving around and interacting as if we're all that. But truly, there is no other. The other is born through the movement that our senses detect. Our 5 little senses to detect the entire universe. Let's call it our limited perception. So fear is born, and these are the 2 keywords, from the perception of other. If you can live in your mind and in your heart as an interconnected being, you will forever be free of fear. Because then nothing can kill you, and nothing can hurt you. It's just the universe doing it to itself, and you as the universe doing your job as a cog in the universe. So this is a profound teaching, and it is a life-changing teaching. And believe it or not, this is the aha moment of waking up. When you have planted that seed of interconnectedness, and you stop competing with everything. When you stop being worthy, when you stop trying to get a bigger car and a bigger house and be better than the neighbor and raise better kids and have a better paycheck, all these things that we do. We even, we're the only animal on earth that wakes up to an alarm clock. That's kind of ridiculous. So we do all of these things because we think they are required of us. Because we think that the world is there to get us. But all of this is pretty much just an illusion, just a fairy tale that we tell ourselves. And it's a scary one. So that's one thing to reflect upon and really care for, our relationship with fear. I think I'll go back to that in meditation in a short time. So as I said, no fear, no desire. No desire, no sadness. What would you cry about if you had everything that you need? And without sadness, there would be no frustration and no anger too. Because it's usually when life takes something away from us, when we feel that we've been disrespected, that we become angry. So, causation in Buddhism is a lesson of interconnectedness and is also a lesson of transiency. It's a lesson of impermanency, which should bring about conclusions of how miraculous this world is. If there are millions of causes bringing you into existence, and this virtual world into existence, and the little bird in the tree in my backyard into existence, then really everything is kind of a miracle. It's something very beautiful. And the fact that when these causes are not present anymore, all of this will just disappear, makes it precious. Everything in that sense is precious and beautiful. And I would say that this is the true meaning of the causation teaching. So I hope I made that clear enough, but please, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Nobody? Okay. Alright, so let's do a special meditation today. We will just get into a relaxed state, and like always, we will follow our breath. But then, let's make this. Let's try to raise our consciousness and see how much of our life is actually organized around our fears. Let us take 3 good deep breaths. Before I forget to, we have started a new tradition. After each session now, we go to the cafe in the corner of the world, and we go have a little chat. If you guys want to join us, you're welcome. And we actually have new guests in the cafe. We have 2 little cats that now inhabit the place. And we are also releasing this week the library that is very close to the temple. Maybe you've seen it on your way in. So we're gonna have a quick walk over there as well. Alright, but that's beyond meditation. Let's go back to our breath and relax your entire body, starting from top of your head. And feel sort of warm water heat go down on your head and slowly covering your head. Relaxing every muscle as it goes down. Your scalp and forehead, your brows. Relaxing the arcades around your eyes, your ears, jaw. 10 special care to relax all the muscles of the neck. Scan your back mentally and release any tension. Talked about it. Relax your arms, that something is moving there. Try and find the energy that resides in your body. Take a moment to get acquainted with it. Let it expand and contract as you breathe. And from this center, start thinking about who you are. What are the things that you like about yourself? What are the things that you would rather change? Why would you really want to change these things? Are there things that you think you should absolutely do? Things that you should accomplish in your life, that you should done every day? Do you feel like you're letting yourself down? Do you truly feel fully adequate? And if you don't feel completely adequate, try and identify the underlying beliefs that got you thinking like that. There is no such thing as a bad human, or a bad dog, or a bad cat. Try and see if you manage to identify any feeling of them and get rid of them one by one. They are nothing but lies that were told to you, that you believe to be true, and integrated into your mental structure. Now is the time to let go of that fear. Let us breathe deeply as we review our mental list. Release those obligations that we have self-imposed. Why do you do the things that you do? Why do you raise in the morning? Do you study because you are afraid you won't have a job? Do you work because you're afraid you won't have money? Do you save money because you're afraid something will happen? Are you with somebody because you are afraid to be alone? Or did you get a pet for the same reason? Find the fear in your life. Think deeply about your daily routine. And try and see how you would live if you would be motivated by love instead and by harmony. How would you live if fear was out of the picture? If there was no limit to what you could do, accomplish, say? If you could experience true freedom, how would you live? small you are making you to be, how small your mind is keeping you. Is fear keeping you in a 9 to 5 routine? Just breathe. Try to inhale the freedom and breathe out the fear. Just focus on the breath until the next bell. As we make intimate contact with our fears, with these fears that are usually barely conscious, it may feel like something a little sad is happening. You may feel the energy in your body becoming a bit shaky, as if creating a tension for change. And although it doesn't feel very good, it's actually very positive. It's the beginning of an aspiration, beginning for a new life, filled with more love and more freedom than we've ever allowed ourselves to experience. replace all that fear with light-heartedness and joy. Let us realize how fear in the past has nailed us in place and how now we can start claiming back some of this territory. So although it might be painful, it is the beginning of something beautiful. In modern society, the topic of death is often avoided, but it is a good practice to reflect upon it often. It is a good way to find what really matters in life. What kind of life do you want to experience now and until the day that you die? And if fear is holding you back, make sure it relaxes its grip and allows you to become all that you want to become. All that you were meant to be, actually, before you held yourself back. Take a deep breath and think about the borders in this world and how they show up on a map. But these borders are just imagine. The land is not cut where these lines were drawn. It just keeps on continuing. In the same way, we have established mental borders, mental boundaries in our mind. That are holding us captive, and we need to let these concepts go. The world is not there to get you. It needs you. And you need it too. Now until the end of this meditation, let us try and reflect on some changes that we can make in our life. Nothing drastic. Changes don't need to happen tomorrow morning. But how could we aspire to live differently? Which areas of our life are governed by the most fear? And how could we transform that into peaceful experience? What are the limiting beliefs that we need to let go? Let's think of it until the last pause. And keep 25% of your attention on breath forward. Actually, if you get fear, you need to accept your own vulnerability. To accept that you will never be shielded from events entirely. And so I would like us to finish this meditation simply by trying and opening our hearts to all of the goodness and all of the sadness of this world. Let us decide to expose ourselves to the entire universe because we understand that it is a friendly universe. And that knowingly taking the risk, we have decided to embrace all there is. But let us have 3 final breaths while trying to open our heart like this to everything there is. And let's use that as a first step toward letting go of our fears appropriately. Without welcoming the hurt, there is no welcoming the peace. So let's just remember that now as we finish our session. And I must say I'm curious about how it felt today because this was quite different. So anybody would like to share with us how they experienced this little meditation about fear?
It was fun, but I fell asleep a few times, so sorry.
Alright, so you were not too triggered by your own fears.
Yeah.
Alright. Anybody else?
Usually my fears come out more at night than anything. That's when like, all my emotions well up most. So it's kind of almost harder to like try and tap into it during the daytime, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Like memories, like distressing memories, is that how they manifest at night?
Yeah. Or doubts too.
Did somebody manage to connect a little bit to like their limiting beliefs and what is holding them back right now?
At one point, I caught myself almost crying.
Yes. So that is connecting, and if you keep on practicing like that, it's something that can happen, which is a very good step to release it actually, because if we don't realize that fear is omnipresent in our lives, then we cannot treat ourselves, we cannot heal from it. And so it's important to recognize clearly what we're doing to ourselves before we make some good aspirations and some change.
I think partly is a lot of my fears also come just because of the limitations I was made to believe by the upbringing of my environment and from other people putting down upon me, which made me restrict my movement in ways that I otherwise might be able to do so, by making me believe that I can't do such things.
Yeah, I think you were not in that session. It was an early one, Casper. But I was quoting Henry Ford at some point, who used to say, "If you believe you can, and if you believe you can't, you are right both times." So that's a good thing to keep in mind, that whatever it is that we believe limit us in some way. So it's better to have limitless beliefs, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else has something to say?
Well, I was helped in a way that by thinking about the things you said, now I have a better idea of something that I want to create. Now, that might be a bit random, but now I have a better idea of something that I truly want to create, which I think will fulfill me in life a bit more than I already am. So, yeah, by taking the time to think, I think I'm more clear on myself on what I want to do next, in a way. Which is a good thing, I guess, taking the time to do this every now and then with yourself, even if it's not really meditation, so to speak, even in a meditative state of mind, you can really understand what you want to do with your life, even like for the immediate future, not for the long term. It just helps, I guess. It's
To
a good
keep
thing to do.
to keep the distractions away, because otherwise you get plagued by thousands of thoughts and intrusions that keep you away what you might not think about.
So here's a very potent meditation in action that I practice. It's simple, but if done with awareness, it's quite powerful. In your daily life, try to develop the mindfulness of fear. Try to notice, if you notice, for example, that your heart starts racing or pounding, if your hands become sweaty. So if you can detect any of these signs of fears, or if your mind becomes very, very small, very pointed, it's, there's a reason why it's contracting, and usually fear does that. Fear contracts our mind. So whenever you detect fear in your daily life, first of all, notice it. Second, feel it. And third, make a point of doing the things that scare you. Actually, just occurred to me that Pema Children in my lineage wrote a book called Going to the Places That Scare You. And it is a wonderful practice. Because as you go into the fear and as you learn to tame it, you are in effect claiming back that territory that I was telling about. You are removing, you are allowing the known to expand, and your comfort and your peace in life will proportionally increase. Uh, this has been my main practice for a period, I'd say, of 3 years, where I would just pretty much try anything that made me afraid. Now, mind you, don't be reckless. Don't start jumping off planes and off mountaintops just because you want to face your fears. It is possible also to face them without jumping, just by imagining the jump, just by analyzing and picking apart what would scare us in that circumstance. So you can try and do that. You can try and simulate it in your mind without doing the action. Yes, Xalgo?
There's also VR where you can try out things. Maybe if you are totally afraid of something, you can try it in VR first.
Actually, this is a therapy that's been used, for example, many phobias are treated in VR. If you're scared of spiders, you could start
Yeah.
exposing yourself to photographs and then exposing yourself in a game or in VR or whatever, and then the fear becomes less. So yes, of course, VR chat, I think, is an incredible platform for those that suffer from social anxiety, that are a bit shy, also to kind of learn to mix with people and see that it's not everybody that's intimidating and dangerous. And yeah, you can take little steps definitely in VR. All right, so
I'm actually one of those guys. First of all, I went on
yes,
VR chat, like, said hello and ran away.
right. And how is it for you now?
It's great. I can talk to pretty much anyone and everyone.
The funny thing
I
is,
used to be really shy when I was young, like extremely shy.
I used to be like
That's
that.
great.
I used to be like that. The very first time that I remember when I ever socialized, and that this was online, of course. Back in the day, oh, when I was young still, joking. I had an Xbox 360, and it was my first experience back then in the day, connecting online and speaking another language in English. It was a Call of Duty game actually. I don't know which one it was anymore. But yeah, I connected online, you know. I shot people. Those were getting shot. You shoot people. That's kind of what you do, you know. But suddenly I realized someone was speaking to me and called my name. Uh, and I was like, oh no, they're calling my name. And I turned off my Xbox 360 and didn't play on it the entire day anymore. Because I got turned out getting shot and shooting other people weren't really the problem. It was the moment someone mentioned me and they expected me to talk back. But yeah, yeah.
Right. So yes, it is very therapeutic, and I have a strange background on that because I used to be very shy as a kid, in like in real life, and then I think I overcompensated. I was fighting my shyness so hard that I became quite extroverted, and then kind of found balance later in life where I realized that sometimes it's better to be quiet and other times to be outspoken. But I guess what I want to share is that when I got into VR chat the first time, to me it felt like learning to socialize all over again because there are different rules in here. People look different. You don't really have like the facial expressions. You have some of the body language for those that are in VR, but not all. And so it had been a very long time that I hadn't been that intimidated by social context. And I remember laughing alone because, I mean, you guys are not real, you're just avatars. But it didn't feel like this, right? It felt very tangible and very intimidating for a couple days. And then I made a few friends and realized that it was not so different from real life and it allowed me to relax. But I had that fear and I worked to overcome it in a quick period of time because why would I do that for myself? Why would I live away from all of you fantastic people, right? So I want that piece of land too. I
Wait,
want to be able to exist and bloom in VR as just as well as anywhere else.
be careful with blooming if you enter an ERP furry world. You might encounter fear again.
Right,
Oh
but
dear.
but I mean it's a dance. It's fine to feel fear. Just do not let it drive your life. I guess that's the main thing.
Or you become
So
Batman and
Julia,
use
if
your
you would.
fear against enemies.
My gosh.
Sorry.
I was thinking about it, Casper, but I think I'm gonna leave that for 2022.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's. This is quite casual now, so let's just close the session, and if you want, we can go and have a little chat at the cafe as well. So Julia, would you join me for the dedication, please?
Sure. For the benefit of beings without exception, I dedicate without any reticence whatsoever all the merit accrued through virtuous acts to the incomparable expanse of totality.
Thank you, Julia. Oh, I forgot to raise. We should have risen, but anyway. See how shields work. Doesn't really matter. So, Bilbao, everybody, thank you for being there again. And if you feel like seeing the new stuff that Karl has put into the world, you can follow me.
I might slightly be interested.
Let's go, Hornet.
I was the last one.
This
to
session
wait,
had
not
some
because
quite
like-
interesting talks. I really liked it.
Oh, you should have seen the video, Karl, when we were talking about simulation theory when you weren't there yet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry for
that
being
cafe
late
is-
today. My dad said
No worries, Malka. Alright, so I think either I or you're lagging a little bit because the sound synchronized is strange. Let's go see Karl. Take us to the library, please.
Oh yes, the library. So it's right this building at the beginning. Which now looks quite good.
Now
It's
I'm leaving now.
furniturized.
For,
Nice to meet you all.
for those that don't know.
Again.
Oh,
Bye.
goodbye, Jaron. Take care.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Yeah.
Second. Sorry for snoozing off.
have a nice week
Sorry.
Yeah.
and a happy new year.
Bye. Happy New Year.
Is there a Quran hidden in the
So
library?
yes, this is the book club. No, Casper.
Are there really books that we can
Ooh.
read or something?
Yeah, there will be. They're not there yet, but you will be able to pick some books from the shelves and sit and read them here or take them anywhere in the world. Read them by a lake, for
Yes.
example.
Is it just like real ebooks or is it just a cover?
No, it's gonna be really books.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Really books?
Yeah, yes.
Really books.
Yeah.
How would that work?
We're working on a.
The only thing that we won't be doing is including like the images from the ebook, so it's just gonna be plain text, but you're gonna get the entire book.
Oh.
Cool.
Right.
So yeah, so this is a little cozy library, and we don't have that many shelves because we don't want to convert thousands of ebooks. So we're gonna be heading them slowly. At some point, I will publish the format specification once we have tested the C# class and Udon Sharp class as well. And then if you guys want to participate in the effort, like converting your favorite ebooks or whatever, I
Ooh.
would definitely
That'd be interesting.
love that. Yeah, we could add
Can we-
books like every week.
I hope you guys love
Can we
H.P.
have the book of
Lovecraft.
Pema Children?
I would have to ask permission, but as I said, Pima Children is in my lineage, so it's likely that Shambhala would do a little exception for us if we ask nicely.
Yeah, I really like her book about compassion and stuff.
Yeah, she has wonderful books. If you don't know her, you should definitely have some time to discover her talks. There are many talks on YouTube as well. And personally, I prefer, because Pema has a special style of teaching, so I am on Audible. I listen to a lot of audiobooks. And on Audible, you can find many of Pema's retreats, and they're good. They're deep and they're good for a laugh as well. So if you get a chance, you might as well try an Audible title.
I've been listening to her
So
videos on YouTube. It's really cool.
So, apart from the library, Karl has caught 2 stray cats that now live in the cafe.
Yes.
Uh,
Let's go to the
so
cafe.
as we
Check
were
out the cats.
joking yesterday, don't trust them. They've already been fed.
You caught what? Whiffle? You had a Twiffle in the cafe?
I think Riffle would like to join them.
Hmm. We might ask Whiffle to be part of the decor again, like with the boot.
Lord Jargon, I see your friend request, but I can't not add you. I don't know why. I keep clicking, but it's not just working. I don't know. Maybe I have a lag. I have really lag sometimes.
What I do with that is I run the outcast.com, like where I do manage my and accept it on the online platform. This has happened
This
to me.
weird painting issue.
So how is lucid dreaming going, eh?
I've been trying the exercise and looking at my hand a few times a day. Hasn't happened yet.
Everything, and it's family here.
I'd say Christmas is probably partly to blame, you know.
Have you seen
Dreaming
them
too
yourself
much.
in
And
VR chat yet?
say to me,
Okay.
logging in again, and I was logging.
I got one solution for that. I'm using a website as friendly.
It's really cool. They kind of bring the place to life.
Yeah.
There's the sound change.
Where are the cats? I don't see no.
For me, I'm petting one.
Oh, I don't see no
yeah,
cats
so
here.
it's kind of local to each of you. They have a
Oh,
routine that
okay,
they walk
okay.
around. One of them is down here.
Oh, I see a.
There's one up there and
When
one
is
down
the
here.
when is the animation triggered, Karl? Is it when like I get close to the building?
No, it's just all the time. So it starts from here.
Okay.
It goes to sit in front of the building, and then with the coffee bags, and it just repeats that.
Right now I'm seeing it here, although it is local since it follows a pattern. I suspect that we pretty much see it. Well, maybe with a 1 or 2 seconds.
The only cat I see.
Does the animation start when you enter the world?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently.
Karl,
So for everybody,
There's a
the
delay
animation
here.
starts at a different time.
And where is the second
Until we
cat?
sync it.
Karl, it needs to purr. You have
there's
to
another
create
one
purring
up there.
sounds of the cat. Brrr, brrr. Yeah, need purring sounds. Brrr.
I think we should record Casper.
Yeah, I'll create purring sounds. Brrr, brrr.
No, the one upstairs is lazy. It's just sleeping.
Yeah, that's me. That's my spirit animal. Brrr.
It is moving.
So Karl,
The cat is moving.
so Karl, when we get a chance, I think I would like the cat downstairs to be a little bit less educated. In fact, like let's have him jump on a table and kind of look at people or something like that.
That would be cool.
Yes,
Karl,
I
you
think
should have
so.
pickups off by default, and because of the VR chat sitting bug, you should have the chairs off by default. So when they come in to meditate, they just turn on chairs. Or if they come in here, they just turn on the pickups.
The chairs you can turn off in the Sangha. Here we didn't put
Yeah,
that
but-
button though, so
No, you should just keep them off by default, so when people now load in, they could always turn it on or off.
I think the spawn site is gonna help for this because we can put a little world config as you enter, and you
Yeah,
you
that's
set up it the way you want to. Hey, hello, Bun Bun, by the way.
Yeah, hi, Bumban.
All right, so I told you about Dharma Cafe. So what we do now is we kind of just come here anytime, have a little cup of coffee, and we share about struggles that we've had in the last weeks or the last few days, and we try and see how our Dharma studies can help us practically in our lives. So far we've had very cool sessions. Scotto, you've been to several of them. How do you like this concept so far?
Oh, I'm liking it a lot. It's a great way to get to know everybody in the Sangha, rather than just the usual meditation, Dharma teachings, and whatnot.
Alright, so let's start with this question. Is there somebody this week that has had a little rough patch and is wondering how they could have handled things differently, or have tried to handle it differently but got surprising results? So anybody who wants to share about what happened this week? Yes, Malka.
So I usually not sure if my senpai will show off. I mean, show in, or how do we say, like, to show, yeah. Because I'm not always sure that she will come. But last time she was here and she recorded exactly the part that got erased by my cat from my PC. Because as you can see, I'm recording the sessions and the meetings, and no one can see your names because it's in. But it's really interesting. And I wasn't surprised because she say, yeah, I did record it and it's actually working and it's great. I was like really surprised.
Great.
My senpai, Emma.
Yes. So, well, thank you for that. Thank you for recording. Yeah, I've seen. I don't know if people are coming and joining us from the streams and the recordings now, but I see people joining the Sangha that I have no connections in common with, and so some of it must be happening. Thank you for everybody that's taking the time to promote our sessions in that way. And so what I meant though is, did somebody have a tough Christmas? Did somebody struggle this week? And
well, I wouldn't
if not,
say.
well, it was a good week.
I wouldn't say that it was too much of a struggle because we saw it coming, but someone that kind of was like a small decade in my life passed away almost on Christmas Day itself. So yeah, that was. I mean, we kind of saw it coming. He was having suffering from cancer, and it was kind of the ex-boyfriend of my mom. But he was still a small decade in our lives, so yeah.
I'm sorry for your loss. How was he? Was he serene, or was he?
I'd say, in terms of Buddhism, of letting go of attachment, he pretty much did it all. But I actually mean that he kinda was so detached from everything that he was living almost with no responsibility, to the point that he was not taking care of him anymore. He kind of got lung cancer because of smoking he did his entire life, till the point that when he lived with us, he was coughing up blood every morning. But he just winked it away and took another cigarette, because his life lesson was always saying stuff like, you have to die sometime, some way, So he just kept on going, even though everyone was telling him that it might eventually backfire. But there are some people of his age that are just like that. They say you have to die some way. If it's your time, it's your time. And yeah, you You can't say
So
like
he was at peace with his choices when the hour came.
I don't know that
No.
because I wasn't there. I don't know if it was just foolishness that he really believed that it was all set in stone, or that he was just, you know, I don't know. It is an addiction, smoking. It is what it is. But if it is something like he said, like, you know, I will accept the outcome, I never really asked because it was one of the weird parts of his personality, that he was always dead at peace with everything.
Alright.
But he was a good person at the end.
Yeah, well, tends to do that when you realize actually you cannot be more at one with the world than when the world is extinguishing you.
Yeah.
You kind of have to realize your place at this moment, and so although it was not necessarily such a struggle as you say, you saw it coming. I feel it's an opportunity to do speak about death a little bit. And I think the most important question I've ever asked myself about death was, when we die, what is it that actually dies? What is it that where does the pain of death come from? And obviously the body dies, right? So that's not really what I mean there. The body falls apart, it's old, and it doesn't work anymore. But what is it that dies? And you see, sorry, please.
I wanted just to say that I have the feeling that even not just for death, but maybe also people that just leave your life is it's something that you associate with basically that person, but like the feeling actually stays. Even if someone dies, for example, it's like the feelings and the good memories you have with that person, they are still there, and you kind of still feel as if that person would be there. So for me, like a friend of mine he did a suicide basically, and through that I was also experiencing that the loss actually is the person or whatever I had in common with him and feeling for him is still there, even though he's not here anymore. Like it's like feels like a little bit we want to have that feeling back, or like that time with that person. So for me at least.
So in a way we could say that this is a bit of life after death too, because now he lives through you, and he lives in your memory, and all the people that he has touched obviously have memories of him or her. And I think you're making a good point. The pain of death probably comes from the attachments that are being severed. So on our side, the person experiencing the grief, obviously we can see all that we liked and all that we wanted going away from us. So that's not a very nice experience. We wish we could still enjoy the presence of that person, their understanding, their company, their laughter, and this is taken from us. We may also have a little sense of compassion and think, oh, like, they're so young, there's so much they could have experienced, or they could have lived differently or better. So we might be touched, and there might even be like a little lesson there for us on how we should live our lives. But I think it's interesting to notice that on the side of the dying, it's pretty much the same pain. They have to release their attachments, but exponentially compared to what you're going through, because you're losing just one person and they are losing the entire world. So usually people on their deathbed, if they can't afford that luxury, they want to see their kids and their families and their friends, and they want to say goodbye to everybody because each of the person that they see, they need to grieve. And they tend to do that extremely fast because time is counted and time is short. But they also have to grieve the blue sky and the rain and the sun and the garden that won't be tended anymore and the back of the house and all the little projects that they had started working on that will never get finished. I think a lot of the sadness and the pain of dying goes through this. When I was a kid, one of the first deaths I experienced was the death of my grandfather. I think I was 6 or 7 years old when he died, and I guess my father was kind of a strange man because he wanted me to have a very direct experience of death, and he insisted, and he took me to my grandpa in the coffin, and he said, touch him, see how cold his skin is, see how this is just an empty carcass now, see how, and don't be scared, it was your grandpa and you have known him all of your life, but see, he's not there anymore at the same time. This is just like a relic. So I was still kind of scared, but I trusted in my father, and so I allowed him to take my hand and touch my grandpa, and I remained there observing. And one of my aunt came and put a picture of her in the pocket of the suit that my grandpa was wearing in the coffin. And I remember turning to my dad and saying, "Why did she put that there, Daddy?" And he said, "Well, it's because she wants to be remembered. She wants to go with him like in the other world, and she wants him to not forget her." And I said, "Well, if his body stays behind and he has no eyes and he cannot move, and I mean, as far as I was concerned, his personality was gone as well, because what's personality if not the sum of our experiences and knowledge and reactions? And personality is, I couldn't see how personality was like a thing that could transcend death. And so, in a way, I was humbled by my aunt's gesture and her attachment and her wanting to kind of cross over. But at the same time, it kind of opened a great fear of the unknown for me at an early age. And I remember asking myself repeatedly, why are we living all of this if tomorrow we won't remember a thing? If tomorrow all of this will just fall apart and it will be like it never existed. And so I would kind of find comfort in things that are traditionally encouraged, like, oh, then in my life I should leave a mark, I should maybe write a book, I should plant a tree, I should have children, I should live in the way that I will live through others, and that others will keep my memory alive for long. But the truth of the matter remains, I do to this day think that when you die, you die. And sure, you will be recycled, and many things can happen to different parts of your essence and of your body. But the painful part of dying is really letting go of all this. Imagine, as a whole, just letting go of the memory of the world, letting go of the memory of life together is quite a big step. And in a way, this fear practice that we've been describing today is just a little step towards that. Actually, it has been said a few times that the goal of Buddhist practice is to die well. Actually, Buddhist practice is to die in every moment by letting go of our attachments as they are being formed, and by trying and moving as freely as if we were bodiless in the world. So, death is Yes.
I do have a question about letting go and about
I'm
the
gonna
whole.
go.
Later, man.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Hey, see you, Kaida.
See
Have
ya.
a good day.
Yeah, bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.
See you next time, hopefully.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you for coming.
Bye.
Yeah, I
Close
was.
the door on your way out.
Yeah, don't let the cats wander off.
Yeah.
Now, this is something
That's something, yeah. Walking away instead of disappearing. I'm sorry.
Yes.
That's actually true. You can just disappear, like click. Yeah, and I was pondering about this actually for quite some days now that I wanted to ask you, but the whole thing about letting go and even with that, like letting go of memories that are like attachments and about your ego wanting to take things with you and stuff. I understand that, and it indeed probably it also helps with anxiety and letting go of fear because it's rooted in attachments and rooted in this earthly plane. But if you let go too much, or if you detach you from everything, isn't it that becomes partly a danger as well to almost social pathology or psychopathology in the way that you can't. I mean, it's not the point that you eventually just don't care anymore. Like, oh, someone that I care for died. Let me now let go of the memories, and now I'm walking outside like I've never met the guy before or something. I mean, that I think
Casper,
I think that's.
I think the point. Let me tell you. I have the best answer for that exactly. I think the point is that, as you said before, Zenke, to recognize and embrace all this and the existing of it, and not let it drive your life, but rather you see it and it's there, and you interact with it, interact with the memories, interact with the memories of somebody who's passed away, but not let that basically drive you down a spiral. And in a way, reducing the negative effect of it having, because that really doesn't yield anything for anyone. Like my father died, for example, just an example. My father died, and I can think about that in a way negatively and bring myself down a spiral. But at the same time, I can also think about it and learn from it and remember it and look back at it, refer to it to my mind whenever I'm making life decisions, whenever I'm facing the same things, whenever I'm trying to help others with the same thing, that they're going through the same thing. I can refer back to those memories and recall them, but that's what I can do. And you should not let that, basically the thing you shouldn't do, that everybody keeps telling you shouldn't do, is that not let that drive your life decisions in a way negatively. And I guess that's a good balance, to interact with the memories, interact with the things you know, and not let them drive you more than they need to. So that's I think a good answer for that.
Oh,
because
man,
I don't
the best
agree.
answer, Karl.
I don't really agree with the whole idea of because it kind of sounds like that when you say that you detach from everything to the newcomer's mind, to the whole thing. Sounds like, well, I guess I don't care about anything anymore. I guess I'll just go like jump off a cliff tomorrow. Like it kind of sounds like that, but you kind of have to realize that there's a balance in everything. When you say something, it's not 100% entirely that thing. It's there's always a balance in between of whatever advice you give, whatever path you try to take. I guess there's always a balance that you need to strike for yourself. So this whole like 100% kind of mindset is something that I always try to be aware of. So now that I saw Casper saying it, I thought I'd say my piece on it.
Right, and well, Shoyam Trump, one of the master of the Shambhala lineage, he used to say something like, just because you woke up doesn't mean you should renounce your intelligence. Right? So these pieces of you, like, okay, you don't take your thoughts to the bank. Like, realize that thoughts kind of are of the past and that they kind of lie to you and they don't really represent reality. But at the same time, thoughts are useful. Same thing about emotions, realize that you might be overreacting and this emotion is maybe not as important as it feels. But yet, emotion is probably a vehicle for your intuition to express itself through you. So the idea is just to keep everything in the right proportions and make an informed decision, not just by listening to your thoughts and not just by listening to your emotions, but also by sizing the entire situation that you are confronting and then dealing with it appropriately from a new perspective that is well constructed. I think the best of all saying to illustrate like the right attitude in these cases is the Zen saying, uh, like, let your thoughts in, but don't serve them tea. You see, like, it's like guests, we like having guests, but we also like when they go. So it's pretty much like that we should treat our thoughts and our emotion. Just don't dwell on them and don't give them the center stage of your life. As he said, and especially with fear, do not let fear drive your life. If anything, put love in the driver's seat and deal with the fears, but not the other way around. So it's just about achieving and striking the right balance there. But then, you were mentioning, I don't remember what pathology, like psychopathology, somebody that is
sociopathology, someone that sometimes it's described as someone that has like pathology means most of the time sickness, and sociology, like a social context. Most of the time, I think it's like described to people that have difficulty feeling emotional attachments, and that's why some people find that they can't interact properly with other people because they don't have that empathy understanding, for example. So they not really,
right.
yeah.
So you're putting your finger on it, and that's how Buddhism works. That's why we cultivate compassion, because this is a path that could actually turn you into a psychopath. If you just did like the letting go piece, and then you could be extremely selfish, let go of every difficult emotion that would enter your body, and have like a very evil agenda going on without any remorse. And unfortunately, the Buddhist teachings have been used like that in the past. All right.
Oh, that's interesting.
But yeah, actually, if you look at Genghis Khan, the Mongol conqueror, he had Buddhist advisors, and not only that, but in Japan, the Buddhist teachings were used to create fearless samurais that could wage more brutal wars. And so, although monks rarely kind of fought together because they had a deeper understanding, their teachings were often twisted and put to the service of power. And believe me, it is an incredible tool for power.
Just like any other religion, I guess. When you let go
right.
of completely.
So that's why.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why Mahayana brings in the notion of bodhicitta and compassion and caring for others so much. That's why interconnectedness is so important. If I don't get that part of the realization, then I can just become a very powerful, mean individual, and that would kind of defeat the purpose of why we're walking on this path. So
kind of sounds like the Force.
Similarly, I'm sorry.
Kind of sounds like the Force, light side, dark side of the Force.
Well, the Force, I think, was heavily influenced by Taoism, but in general, Asian philosophies. So yes, that's definitely a good illustration there, where you get Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader.
Yoda feels kind of like a Buddhist in a way, you could say. He's always like you're surrounded by the Force. Look around you, the trees, the rocks, the lands.
Right. So Yoda emphasizes harmony, and Vader emphasizes power. You get the same thing in the Avatar, which I know you love, Casper, where you have like the Fire Nation who's using this bending wisdom to their own advantage and for world domination, while the Avatar is interested in having all of the elements working together and creating a favorable environment for all to see. And this is very old wisdom, so we can see it in many traditions. I'd say like even the Lord of the Rings have some elements of that, where they oppose technology to the technology of the Mordor to the natural harmony of the hobbits that are like better integrated with nature. So that's the deal there. The goal is just to become fully human, not a crazy human that is like super scared and hiding everywhere and fleeing every chance you get, or fighting back every chance you get, and not like a completely unconscious human that is like anything goes and that wouldn't have an active role. I think if you get that, if you become that happy with just anything happening, then you have become defective, equally defective. You're not playing your role as a cog in the universe anymore, because you're just not there anymore, really. You're not engaged. So it's really about, you keep on doing what you've been doing all your life. You still have to have an economy, you still have to pay the rent, you still have to probably deal with the relationships in your family. It's just the way that you're dealing with that inwardly has completely changed. You don't do it out of fear. You don't do it out of reaction. You do it like as a premeditated way, intelligent way of things. So yeah. See how it's interesting how we went talking about death and we found a way of living. Yes.
I have a question. You said like thoughts are in the past. For me, it feels like there is no past and no future. There's only present. Like when I meditate, for example, and thoughts come up, they might be of the past or connected to things that I associate with the past, but they are always in the present. At least that's what it feels for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, the thing is that even the action of noticing a thought, like when you notice it, it's already gone. So to really be in the present is kind of to live in the liquid. Like if you were truly in the present, you couldn't hear a song because you would be too busy hearing all the individual sounds, and you would be too busy seeing all the individual sights, and even your thoughts would kind of be cut in little parts. And actually, it's a very non-conceptual way of experiencing the world when you're truly in the moment. Like, you think nothing of it, you register nothing. I don't know if you've been in that state. In French, we call it being like in the moon or on the moon, where you know, sometimes you just fall in a state and you're thinking nothing and you're seeing in front of you, but yet you're not seeing anything and you're not hearing anything. You're like just completely lost in your bubble for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and then whoops, you snap out of it and you realize that you weren't there.
Daydreaming.
Well, yeah, but there's no dream.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
In what I'm describing there's not even a dream. So this state is, I wouldn't say it's in the moment because you're not interacting with anything, but it's this type of non-conceptual. Like if you could look at a tree in your environment without calling it a tree and without calling it the ground and calling it the sky and calling it the lake, if you can just glance around without any form of judgment or thoughts arising, then you're pretty much living in the moment.
So
yes, that's
you mean like, so if you are completely present in the moment, there are no thoughts. Did I get that right? Or there's only like awareness, or I don't quite understand that. What it means to be like thoughts are in the. I mean, yes, is it that what you mean? Okay.
So we have to distinguish between thought and consciousness and or awareness, and we had a big talk about that last time. I think that's why we went to bed late. So
Yes.
About what
I-
was the talk?
let's see, Scotto. Let's see, Scotto. What's your take on that? You may be quicker than me.
Oh no, I still haven't settled on any one particular notion or theory. I'll let you continue.
All right. So the idea is that thoughts are thoughts, as we were explaining earlier, are the result of your memories and your experience and all of that. But awareness is not necessarily connected to thought. And a few examples I did last time was once I was outside and I was kind of in a meditative mood and I was just looking at everything around me, contemplating my surroundings. And then there was a loud sound. And I turned my head left, and the dog that was in front of me kind of turned his head left at the same time. And I realized at this point that we shared something very special. And this very special was awareness of our surrounding. So I don't know what the dog's thought process was, but it was probably different than mine. Maybe where I thought somebody was working on a construction project. Maybe the dog thought that it was a predator, an enemy, or a friend coming. I don't know what went through his mind, but the awareness was exactly the same. We spotted a stimuli and in the same direction, and we turned towards the same direction. Now, this is not exclusive to dogs. Sunflowers turn towards the sun. There are even plants that walk very slowly in the wood. The roots of the trees are kind of aware of the water and looking for it until they tap into a water source. So everything in our universe seems to be somewhat aware of its surroundings. So what are the thoughts of a sunflower? What are the thoughts of the tree? I really have no clue. Maybe they don't think. But one thing I do know is that they have an awareness. And so that type of awareness is very hard to put in words, right? Because it's just the consciousness of the world, of being in the world. And so when you're in the moment, this is what you're experiencing.
I actually
you have this consciousness of being there.
I actually think I remember very early memories when I was still a very small child. That my mom was like, "How do you remember that you could barely walk?" But it were times when, yeah, I could barely walk indeed, and it are very short memories that I have. But I couldn't talk back then because, geez, I was so young. But I remember parts that I saw my mom lying down, and my father probably, I think it was a kitchen, I don't know. It's kind of difficult to describe because when I look at a tree now, I get thoughts like it's green, it has a brown, all these thoughts come in. But with those memories, when I was that young, it's difficult to describe because there are no thoughts, like there were no like words coming in those memories when I was a kid. It was more about pure feelings that I had, like
Casper, I'm sorry, I just want to thank you right away for this, because this is a very good example for Xalgo and or Scotto if you haven't made your mind, but it's an exercise you could do. Try to remember how you were thinking before you learned language.
Mm-hmm. I mean, just because you were saying that, I had one meditation experience where I was sitting in a longer meditation session, and it's hard to describe because there was more than I can now articulate, but it felt like there were like this cascade coming up, and it was like I was just really in the moment, and then I felt something that I could not describe what it was. Then it came a feeling, and out of that feeling came the thought. So I don't know, but for me this is how I experienced it. So maybe that's also what you mean. Like this is like layer probably is just built up like a computer maybe, and there's this one layer that calculates something, and then the screen displays something. Maybe the thoughts is just the surface. I don't know how, if you mean that.
That's a
I've been
good way
thinking
to
about that
put
stuff
it.
a lot this week. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Zach.
Yeah.
Well, if you have a piece that you want to say, yes, the only thing that I wanted to distinguish there is that there is a ground for everything. Like, this universe comes probably from somewhere, and this somewhere we could call consciousness.
Mhm.
And everything that spawns from it is actually a manifestation of the ground, an appearance or an illusion. So if your thought has manifested out of this ground that contains everything, then it is an appearance or an illusion spawned by the ground too. So it has no intrinsic reality. So it's just going back to the piece is kind of trying to go back all the ways to that ground where nothing, they sometimes refer to it as the unborn. So that's really the mind state that you're looking for if you want to experience the present moment fully. You want to kind of remain in the unborn state of things.
So out of this unborn state, all the other things are basically created. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I don't think the mechanics of that is well documented, to be honest. No, but there are many Buddhist sects who have different theories on that. For example, Mahayana is very quantic. It's very like mind only. Like the world exists because your mind exists, and without you seeing the world in your mind, then there would be no world. And then if you decide that this is the same consciousness, then you go back to interbeing. And
I'll be back in a minute.
Universe giving you your mind, and your mind giving you the universe. All right, Casper. And so it's more like instead of really like giving birth, my first and most powerful experience of it was that it is a potentiality. It might not be all potential that has been realized. It might not all be potential that will all be realized. But you see that in this potential, like, everything is possible. And that would be, I think, the closest thing to the universal consciousness as I could describe with words, because it's very difficult.
So what I've been thinking about a lot this week, and this spawned from a conversation we actually had last week, right here, and I guess I should briefly sum that up because you guys weren't here. But I've been meditating a lot the past few months, and I mentioned that the longer I meditate, the more I start disconnecting myself from my thoughts. In a weird way, I find that I identify less with the feelings that come up, mainly because, you know, when you're meditating, you're focusing on one particular thing, and as you're meditating, things arise that aren't your focus of concentrating on the breath. And at least I sort of realized that if I didn't will this thought to come to be, I myself being the observer, not the actual thought itself, then is that thought me? And it really kind of shook me when I came out of meditation and I started being more mindful day to day, like seeing urges come up. Urges to smoke a cigarette, urges to play video games, urges to avoid boredom. I didn't identify with them in the same way that I had for my entire life, because it felt like I was seeing them in a different way. For the first time, it felt like I saw them just spontaneously arise rather than come from me. And that's really been messing with my head the past few weeks. So I guess
can relate
the way
to that,
I tried
so...
Yeah.
Yes,
the way I've been trying to make sense of all that is, you know, looking to traditional science and seeing what the models for consciousness are, and realizing that nobody really has any idea right now. But the best model they seem to have out there is the dual process theory of consciousness, which separates separates consciousness into implicit and explicit consciousness. And implicit consciousness would be all the visual stimuli that we see. So like we can't, when we open our eyes, we can't control everything that we see. We just see. We can't control the things that we hear. We just hear. That would be the dog barking. We share the implicit consciousness with all sentient life. But the other part of consciousness, the explicit consciousness, it's the external sense that you're aware of something happening, and you can sort of control it through the process of logic. And this is sort of like the part of myself that I felt like I identify more than with the implicit processing, the visual stimuli. You can take implicit consciousness further and say that it's also the desires that arise from experiencing things within the implicit setting. So like in the real world, I smoked a cigarette once, so I crave nicotine. But is it actually me that's craving it, or is it just the implicit experience, my implicit consciousness? So I've sort of been trying to look more at my explicit consciousness, I guess, and I'm trying to see if the explicit consciousness, in air quotes, has been studied too much. Is that ego, or is that something besides ego? Are you a combination of your implicit and your explicit consciousness, or do you identify just with your explicit, the logic and reasoning part of yourself? And yeah, like I said, I didn't really want to talk up too much because I don't have an answer. I'm still thinking about this stuff regularly. But I know
personally, Scott,
meditating is getting me closer.
Personally, I think we will never get an answer to this. And I think that's also kind of the Buddhist position. That's why they didn't try to explain creation, because if we solved that, we would basically solve where everything is coming from. It's like, I don't think it's a level that is completely accessible for human beings to explain. We can probably
I would
explain,
agree. Talk about our 5 sense stores is just not enough to understand the mind.
Exactly, and actually it's been said that just by meditating on the 5 senses you could achieve enlightenment, because they soon take you to what is conscious of the 5 senses, and then you have to ask yourself, well then what is conscious of what is conscious of the 5 senses? So before long your mind is kind of turned upside down, and it becomes something kind of an enigma.
But isn't that also a thing in spirituality, watching the watcher?
Yes, but the reason you do that is to realize that it's like I like in old philosophy, they would say, like, a kid would come and ask the shaman, oh, what is the earth sitting on? And he would say, a turtle. And then he would say, oh, but what is the turtle sitting on? Oh, the turtle is on the shoulders of a bear. Oh, and what is the bear sitting on? Oh, the bear is on a horse. And they would go like that until the kid tired, right? And so that's kind of what we're doing with the observer there. You can always find a layer behind, but then where's the ultimate layer? What was there before the Big Bang? What was there before our the notion of observer even began? So in Tibetan Buddhism, there is also I don't know if you guys have heard from this, but there are like the 9 consciousness levels, which include the 5 senses. And then you have the 6th consciousness is when one learns to understand what is being taken in from the 5 senses. So that's kind of the observer. And then the 7th consciousness, unlike the other 6 level, is directed towards one's inner thoughts. So without sensory input. So if you were cut out from all of you, like if you were in the sensory deprivation tank, and you would just kind of be experiencing your mind for your mind, that's the 7th consciousness. And then you have the alaya, which is the storehouse consciousness that is supposed to accumulate all the karmic energy. So that's kind of where emotion would reside in a way, and the cause and effects and our actions and reactions. And then you have like the 9th level, which is kind of this ultimate universal mind of the universe that is called many, many names like emptiness, or Samantabhadra, or primordial Buddha, or Buddha nature, the unborn, thatness, suchness, name it. So it's so hard to explain that we made about 50 words to talk about this in different contexts. But although I'm familiar with the implicit and explicit consciousness, I kind of like how it's been cut by Tibetan Buddhism also into these 9 kind of stages. It relates very well also with the process of cognitive psychology, where a perception kind of starts with a perception and then it gets colored and you retrieve memory and so on. So there are many models that approximate what consciousness is, but so far, just like you, Scotto, I haven't seen, and it's impossible to have a proof actually for this as with the technology that we have right now, because in science, for something to be valid, you always need a second observer, and so how could you ever prove that what you have observed in your mind is true for me, right? That's why Buddhism kind of focuses on experience, so that you go and you make the inquiry yourself and find out what consciousness really is for you, because there's no way you can demonstrate that in a textbook as of now. I don't know.
But
if
isn't
I'm
also in
making any
Buddhism
sense with
like, isn't there like a place that because everything is a changing phenomena, and I heard there's a place actually that even some Buddhist traditions say there is like it doesn't change anymore, and that's like the ground. Is that the ground, the thing that doesn't change anymore, whatever it is?
Yeah, but you probably also heard, although it doesn't change, it changes, and it neither's change and change, and it neither doesn't change. You know, they apply all this crazy logic to kind of turn it back into an impossibility. That's why I call it a potentiality, because like maybe the ground doesn't change. I often think of it as like a cloud of light. And in that cloud, like everything is possible. Like every manifestation that we have ever known could happen within this cloud. But right now, when I look at it, it's just a cloud that will be there forever, that will never move, that will never do anything. It's just happening kind of in the cloud. So that's my own personal conception and illustration of it. It's certainly not accurate nor demonstrable, but that's how you get that. The reason that they say it's changeless is because it's causeless, because they cannot find a cause. They don't know who put that ground there. So probably it's the turtle and the bear and the horse and you know. So instead of getting into this, they just say it's causeless. And because it's causeless, then its conditions do not vary. And because its conditions do not vary, therefore it is eternal. It cannot ever disappear. So in that sense, it is utterly unchanging, permanent, and eternal. But at the same time, it creates all of these crazy illusions that are moving, that are impermanent, and that are doing a bunch of things. And this is somehow corroborated by the Higgs boson field. Like, apparently they have detected that some particles don't spin and do not do anything, and yet they as they move through the stuff of the universe, they can express themselves as any other type of particles. They can become photons and electrons and other subatomic particles. And so this is, as far as science is concerned, and as far as I'm concerned, like the closest thing to an unchanging yet manifesting field that we have detected in nature. I should probably share that video again that we had watched together a few months ago. And
yeah, sure, that would be nice.
Did you want to say something, Malka, or are you just adjusting your headset?
Yeah, we can watch it here right now if we want, because there is a video player. I'm not sure if it's working. I never try, but we maybe can do after each session, like a small YouTube video on the topic that we will choose. I mean, it's up to you, but it can be a good idea.
I suggest that we do that. Oh, what happened? Sorry for sitting on you, Chalgo. I think I
No
hit
problem.
the button on
I
my
was
mouse.
like hearing you everywhere. I was like, ooh.
So Malka, I suggest we do that actually on Fridays, like we have open teaching, because as you can see, we have started this session at 1, and now we've been going on at it for 2 hours and 45, and I have another session coming up soon. So Fridays, yes, we could definitely like bring our favorite teachings or our favorite documentaries and watch that together every Friday. But yes, this thing works. It has a little sync bug that if you put a video here, it will also play in the Sangha right now. But we will fix that soon. Right, Karl? Right, Karl? We will fix that soon.
Yes, we will fix it. I will fix
it. Yes. So actually, I think that's a good time for me to just say that I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna have a little pause now, and I'm gonna prepare for my next session. But I'm very happy that you guys are there. Thank you, Lord, for staying the entire way with me as well. And if you guys want to keep on chatting, please do. How did you like your first session, Lord?
I wasn't expecting. Like, this got really deep, and I don't know, it's really cozy. I really liked it.
Great. So I'll leave you guys to chat together or watch a video or whatever it is that you feel like doing, and I will just retire for now, and we'll see you next time. Happy New Year, if I don't see you by then.
Thank you, Zenkai. Happy New Year.
Bye-bye.
Happy New Year. Thank you.
I'm gonna fix something for Senkei to eat as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Just check this before.
Okay, I'm back.
I need to go sleep because it's evening here.
Okay, I'm back.
Oh, sweet dreams.
Okay, what happened?
We're just
Yeah,
breaking.
good night, everyone.
Good night.
Yeah.
Breaking.
Good night, Malcolm.
Also,
Good night.
have to go as well.
Good night.
See you guys.
And Happy New Year, everyone.
So, Skodo, how long are you meditating?
I'm gonna go to.
Take care.
Happy New Year's to you as well.
I've been meditating maybe.
Happy New Year.
Good luck with Zelda. Yeah, with Link, I mean.
Started taking it really seriously fast.
Yeah, thank
How long a day? Like, what
I'm
duration?
about an hour and a half a day right now.
Okay, yeah.
Cookies.
I'm trying to work up to 2 hours by the end of. I'm doing a meditation.
Had to go to the night store real quick. Was almost closed. Kinda lost time inside.
So we'll see how long I can maintain that schedule. How about you?
Well, I'm
Are you there, Karl?
meditating also for 1.5 hours, like 1.5 years, I think, and then I kind of
Seems Karl is
went
AFK
on
at the
vacation
moment.
and I stopped after
Oh,
that.
sorry, I was just saying something.
I had to change a few things in my life actually in meditation.
Yeah,
because
kinda lost time.
talks.
Kinda lost time.
helpful and gave me a lot of insights, and
The
I
store
also
was almost
tried to
closed, and I was
establish
like, oh my
at least a little
god,
bit of meditation
there's
to
still attachments I need to get.
away from other things because like
Yeah.
focusing for me also was
I'm going to
stress,
sleep
so I
because it's
couldn't
evening
like
for me.
focus.
So
If
I
I was
just
focusing like for
going
2
home.
hours.
How did you like the
meditation,
session?
I had not enough energy to
It's
focus.
Oh, it was
evening and
nice.
I also
I always enjoyed the talks, especially.
I missed the last part, but I'll see the recording.
I've tried to finish other stuff and then I actually want to go back to
Mhm.
have like a regular practice.
Oh, I would like to bring Zenkai into like maybe in one of the sessions into some of the talks that you and I have sometimes about, you know, the conscious of the universe and everything. I would like to see what he
We
has to say
actually
on that.
talked that a little bit in that one video, more at the end towards about the whole conscious of the universe.
Still have to check it out.
Yeah, I'll make
I would like to
timestamps.
see
I'll
what
make
he would.
timestamps. I'm still working on it.
We'd like to see what he would think about that whole idea that we had, that maybe the whole there was no creator, but the universe as a whole was creation itself, and to understand itself, it broke itself down to simpler parts, And so us humans came to be with all of our imperfectness. In order to understand how he came to be what he was, he broke himself down to simpler things, and that was how like life was created.
And maybe
So I was yeah.
maybe when we die, our consciousness goes back into, this big collective.
Just to like see, like, because we're always there's always this thing that be a cog in the like work of the universe, like do your part in it. So what are we working towards, like the question of what are we working towards if we're doing our part.
I think we might understand better if we imagine ourselves being the universe, or imagine ourselves if we would be like a being that could change ourselves into anything. Would we do it? Would you do it? If you could change yourself into...
When I tried to imagine that, and just like being everything, well, with my human mind, the thing that comes to mind immediately is that if you know everything, suddenly a lot of it becomes, if you still have these emotions and thoughts, that's obviously the only way I can think right now because I have them. Being like that, a lot of things suddenly start being pointless. Basically, like just like being God. A lot of things, you know everything. There's no challenge. There's no transition. There's no contrast to anything. Everything is just one still thing. And in order to maybe get rid of that, the consciousness of the universe, if it had any emotions like wanting to know, if it wanted to know something, maybe it came to the conclusion that it needs to go back to what it was made from, and in a way broke itself down to the simpler things, and then everything came to be: us, the universe, the galaxies. Those are the simpler things that are interacting with each other.
Well, then let's not be the universe, because that's above us. But let's say you had magical powers that could transform you into unconsciousness or of other living beings, like to know how it is to be a bird for a day.
Good night.
Would you do it?
Good night.
Good night.
And lower your microphone a little. Lower your microphone a little.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Your booming voice is really nice to listen to for me.
It should be better now.
Yeah, a little better. Okay, good night. It was nice to meet you.
Nice talking to you too.
I still like the concentration.
Good night to you as well.
Stage 4, that's basically when the thoughts stop.
Good night.
First time when you have no thoughts.
Yeah, I was thinking, the universe is too far above us, but let's say you have the power to completely become a bird, and not a bird with a human mindset, but a bird with a bird mindset for a day. Would you do it just to be able to understand everything even below you? Like, I have the power to become an ant for a day and to experience how an ant would feel like. Would you do it then, if you had such powers? Or would you just say, pass, I'm a human, I'm beyond an ant, so why would I?
Well, the thing is, in the contents of which you're putting it, I obviously would, but when there's an issue, coming back from that, let's say it happens, and suddenly I'm an ant, and there is nothing, I don't remember anything from my human past, I don't know anything about being a human, I'm just an ant, and I'm just disconnected for an entire day from all human existence. So, yeah, I gain 1 day of experience from that life. I experienced 1 day of being an ant, but then coming back from that, how would I remember that? Being back to a human, to understand what it is to be an ant, you can't really remember that because you were an ant and you're not anymore. So if you're back to being a human, the only way that experience really means anything is as if you in some way remember something about it and understand something about it. But coming back from an ant that has different body and different senses, how would you even really understand what it is that you learned from that? So in the way that you're putting it, it's like picking the avatar of an ant and walking around in VR chat and just seeing how cool that is. But in reality, experiencing exactly that, you would need to stay an ant from then on out. to really like gain something from that in a way. If you come back from it, I feel like most of what you experience is going to be lost because you're back to being a human. You're walking on two legs, you have a heartbeat, you have the limitations that you do, you're just different. And that is just going to be for that. It's just going to be in that one day that you're an ant, and outside of that, you can't really gain or use what you learned in that because you're not that anymore. So
maybe that's why it takes a lifetime before we go back to where consciousness itself comes from. Just one day isn't good enough to understand.
I just moved from Vancouver a while ago.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's what I try to think about. That well, okay, I will accept and embrace. And now that I'm in this part of my life, I'm really okay with. I'm like okay with making peace with bad things. I'm okay with moving on from things. So now if I'm playing my part, I would like to know what could I be possibly contributing to, you know? So that's what I wonder about a lot nowadays. That what it could be. It could be that in a way there is only one Karl that can ever be, and I'm supposed to figure out something about myself. And in a way, this little part of myself is a part of that initial thing, initial being that was trying to understand itself. Hence, it broke itself down and I came to be. And by figuring myself out, something from my consciousness is going to be connected to that like higher being, and he's going to like get one bit of information to work towards this final goal of understanding itself, whatever it is. So maybe that's the part we play to become the best of ourselves that we can be.
You're still thinking that it has a final goal. We're still thinking in human terms, like a beginning, middle part.
So that's the thing, though. At the very end, look, no matter how much we talk about this, we're basing it on 2 + 2 = 4. And if you think about it, if the 2 + 2 of the universe equals 5, then there's endless possibilities. That we don't even know anything. Like that being that broke itself down could just be one atom of an entire galaxy itself. Like it could be an ever-ending thing.
I mean,
I guess that's what's.
I even think Buddhism doesn't want to give the answer from this is it, or like what other religions do. In all cases, Buddhism, in all cases, in that regard, about reincarnation, as some monks believe in, it might be all wrong in the way they think it is, and I don't think that's really the notion we're learning here, but just letting go of the suffering that all of us seems to be trapped in our mortal lives, because a lot of the conflicts in the world and wars waged were because of attachments and desires and ego and fear and not understanding.
And that's how it's said, you know, like Buddhism, it's a ancient knowledge of the mind for us to know ourselves better and live happier and like live with more conscious, something like that. It doesn't really promise the answer, the key to the universe, especially like that, but in a way it helps us go through our everyday life, and that's, I think, one of the many tools you're gonna need to really understand the universe. I don't think this singular Buddhism on its own, because it's like a lot of the things he's being saying I've already had in my mind, and like the base of it is already there. And this seems like only part of it. There's so many other things that I wonder about. So I feel like this is one good way in the right direction. This is just one step of what you need to do in order to become that higher being of yourself in your life, and like understand what your part is in this life. What is this life even? So I don't think this whole Buddhism singularly is like gonna give you a golden answer all of a sudden.
I don't think. I think if we look in Buddhism as the golden answer to life, then it's wrong in itself. It should just be a part of life.
It's exactly this whole concept. Yeah, this whole concept that let me go 100% into this one thing and expect it to fix everything. This whole concept, I think, is wrong in anything really. In any religion or in any thought. Let me like buy this thing so it fixes all of my life issues. Let me like talk to this person, let me do this, let me do that, so it does everything for me. That whole mindset almost never really works.
Indeed.
It's wrong, I think.
It's really a good idea to share this mindset with everyone on this world, and for the safety of those who don't understand and the safety of us, we will burn all the infidels that do not want to transfer into our mindset. Oh wait, now we've become Christianity and Islam, so... Oh, am I still recording? Hello there? Yeah, but you know what I mean. Oop, Karl went silent. I'll wait a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you understand what I mean.
I would like to... I would like to also bring that up in one of these talks that...
Remember how the Fire Nation... Remember how the Fire Nation started? When the Avatar was reborn as a Fire Nation himself. They wanted to use the Avatar to share their technology of the Fire Nation.
Are you gonna say the... Sure, you're gonna say the Chinese are doing that now?
I'm not necessarily saying anything. I'm just saying the whole about religion, about sharing, and those who do not want to share needs to be punished, or you know, you see it in the cartoon as well. You know, the Fire Nation had technology, and they said we have to share this technology with the world, and if they do not want it for the better sake. We have to discipline them, so they basically did a whole Holocaust with certain benders, like the air nomads. But it's just how religion also works, you know. And it's not just religion, but also politics, you know. And I don't think Buddhism should be seen, because I think even the Zenkai said Buddhism was used in a way to create monster-like beings back in the day, like... Who was it, Karl, that he said in history? Buddhism advisors. Yeah, Buddhism advisors.
Yeah. Oh, Genghis Khan, the guy who conquered Asia and everything.
I mean, if you put it to your... Indeed, it should just be a step to embetter your life and be able to...
that's how. Okay, let's put it in a simpler term of people who we deal with in our everyday life. My father, Shadowfall, people like this, that they see one way. Like Shadowfall was always the kind of person that whenever you talk to him, yeah, he was talking about this. Oh, I've been enlightened, my mind, what I've seen in my dream, this path of my life. Same way with my father. He believes in this one thing. And he keeps pulling on that thread forever, and he doesn't try to enlighten himself on maybe every now and then pick up a book, read something new, something out of your comfort zone. People who really try to take one thing and sit down and get comfortable in that one thing and never open their mind to anything ever again. Because sure, the idea of Buddhism sounds really really good, really helpful and perfect, but with all that it is, you still should keep your mind open to other things as well, because if you don't, then that's defeating the point of becoming enlightened, because you're still treating it as if it's the one golden key answer, which I don't want to do with this Buddhism. I want to learn from it. I'm taking what I can take from it that applies to my life and applies to my logic, and yeah, that's really what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what it should be, and that's what it tries to be.
I think Zenkai, in a way, I mean, I can't speak for him, but I think he's also combining Buddhism with other things instead of just relying completely on Buddhism. It's clear that he knows quite a lot about
he does.
Scientific concepts, and
I mean, he's been a really successful businessman. He's done all sorts of things. He's met a lot of really important people in the world. He's done a lot of governmental things. He's been all over in all sorts of fields. So yeah, I actually think he does that. And as he's explained to me what he's going to do in this whole world and the whole Buddhism thing is only like one part of something bigger he's trying to do. So that's yeah. But you know, that part is really up to you to figure out on yourself, like what are the other steps. If you rely on others to tell you those steps all the time, then it becomes again relying on one thing for others to tell you what to do. Then it's not you at the end of the day.
It's what Sankey at one time said when we were talking about happiness and what happiness is. He at one time he said, so what do we do in life? Like find a mate, find someone, and we find someone for what? To be happy, to find happiness. It's the purpose of being with someone just for this person to give you happiness and nothing more. I mean, and he said something like, happiness you should find in yourself, you know. And I think a lot of people, we have to rely on ourselves instead of wanting to be relied on by exclusively others, or yeah, you know, we have to. I think that's why our individuality is so important. Otherwise, we're just, you know, sheep, I'd say.
Yeah.
But people like to be sheep. I
Because,
mean, it's just in
yeah.
general. You see it. People like to follow a notion that promises them a safety, because eventually
It's the
everything
kind of
is.
sheep that it's the kind of sheep that promises you a very special individual life, like how my father is living his life. It's been promised to him that he's a very special individual by doing what he's doing, just following.
But your father is quite a Buddhist himself in that regard, joking, because he's quite peaceful and has no fears as well, does he? He's so far entrailed in his beliefs that he had 2 heart attacks and he's still not afraid to do shit. It's kind of amazing and sad at the same time, but he completely detached fear from his lifestyle. But he's ruining almost everyone else around him by doing so.
If he was on his own, living his own life without damaging ours, I'd say he's a pretty happy person, as he is.
I mean, that's why I kinda asked the Zenke about letting go and detaching, and I'm quite glad with the answer I got, because he said that it was... I didn't even know that such violent people in the world had Buddhist practitioners to be able to completely let go of any kind of emotion, to be able to do such atrocious things.
The more I go in life, Casper, the more I realize that whatever new thing that I find about, I should always look at it in such a way that, oh, I can take something from this, not in such a way that, oh, I found the golden gate, now let me walk into it and become happy now. And I feel like whoever does that, they might get some like temporary feeling of safety in their mind, but if that practice ends up not working in an everyday life situation, like for example, my mother is she's a religious person herself, but every time things don't go the way she wants, she like flips out suddenly, as if like her beliefs and all didn't exist all of a sudden. It's like, oh God, why do you do this to me? Are you God even? Why would you do this to me? Like, you know, people can kind of flip out when something goes not in their way, even though they might have had a belief on it for their entire life. So that kind of thing is happening because you put all your belief into one thing, and when that one thing goes wrong, you like flip out and you like start cursing God for whatever reason.
You become like that one person in Way Zero after he discovered the witch with his own eyes.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the good way for life in general, just like looking for answers, is that whatever you find, oh, I can take something from this to craft my own way of life. And again, pointing to the whole thing that great people are not developing in this world anymore as they used to back in the day. That's also part of it, because everybody is looking for a way. Nobody's really trying to craft a way for themselves. I think people should do that more.
I think that's
So
I think that's
hopefully,
actually the curse partly of technology. It's let's just say, a lot of people are getting depressed, bored. Some people are just getting bored in life. Now, you didn't really have the option to be bored in life back in the olden days of maybe my grandparents' parents, because they needed to work for young, they needed to support the family, they needed you woke up, you had to do shit, and then you fell asleep because you were exhausted. So you didn't have time and luxury to be bored. When we were cavemen, yeah, like you needed the food. It's like an open world game, you know. Whether you are starving, then you are like you're going to die of thirst. You keep having to fill in those parameters. But now with technology, we are fulfilled all the time with these parameters. Like we have all the food we already have, we have all the drinks we already have. So we're sitting here in this technology like age, time age, and we're bored of life itself. Because what do we even do anymore? Then there's nothing, you know. That's kind of the issue, and so we start thinking, we start experimenting, and some people go batshit insane, and it comes back to fear, you know. We're still trying to figure out, even this technology advanced age we're living in, what is it that life is? Because just look at it with COVID-19. Just a simple pandemic, because COVID-19 isn't even that dangerous of a virus compared to viruses in human history. But look at how it surprised us cocky humans, thinking we understood everything so far. It really showed the entire world, this virus, that we were ignorant fools, thinking we understood it all.
Yeah.
There's so
I
much
guess
we
that's
don't
something
understand.
that's something that we lose actually, no matter how much we gain technology. The whole collective consciousness. Of course, they were more conscious of this back when the Spanish flu came, and for probably the next generation after that, they were probably very much more careful than we were now. So in a way, it seems like with generations coming and going, this collective knowledge, in a way, the collective respect, the collective knowledge of the universe, or that kind of gets changed, and every generation it seems to need to recreate that for themselves in a way to stay on the track. I kind of feel like that's why the world is becoming in a way more dull, of more great people, of more things like how it used to happening anymore. It's because back in the day, every generation had to create something of its own and then use that, and then next generation would come in and do the same. But it's like the more we go, the more everybody needs to follow this path. Then that doesn't happen anymore.
The world is getting like a big factory. I mean, it's like those video. It's like that one game that we played, Inferno, but that it's also that one game with IT, with coding. The entire place is like one big factory in that game. Like everything is industrialized. Everyone is the
everything
same.
is becoming, everything is trying to become risk-free, and that's not gonna really last for long. In a way, it's not gonna last us very long if we try to always live these risk-free lives where everything is fine, where we don't have to. Yeah.
But yeah, it comes back because people are afraid.
It's kind of, if you think about it, Casper, it's kind of an illusion, because, like, for example, we have all this technology, but look, like, there's 1 billion people in the world not having access to clean water to drink. While you just go to your tap, I go to my tap, and I take a drink of glass of water. So all this technology and concentration of comfort is just kind of really for a bunch of us, not for everybody. So in a way, the world is not The world is not fixed, and the world is not fixed. And this whole thing that, well, I guess we don't have to worry about food anymore. I guess we don't have to worry about this and that anymore. It's kind of just true for a bunch of people that live in certain places.
I would say that you still have adventures that I am dulled by this society, because I haven't met the whole being stranded and having to walk all that way back, for example. Not going too much into detail, but you know what I mean. But yeah,
yeah, that's...
You didn't really have time to be bored then, did you?
Yeah, no.
But no, not that I'm saying that your situation was better, but what I'm saying is, I think...
Well, I guess you're saying that there was something to be had in that and something to be learned from that. Not to say that we should live like that, but we should learn the same thing that I would have learned from that and have that in our lives.
I think people are...
So much of it is just about appreciating what you have. So much of it is just about that.
Yes, but we don't live in a time where we can appreciate what we already have, because everything is getting... you have to go to school to get grades, you have to get grades to get a good education, you have to get a good education to have a good job, you have to get a good job to have a good house, you have to have a good house and be settled to be able to have a wife, you have to have a wife to have children, you have to have children to have a legacy. That there's no time to live in the present and appreciate the now, because all people are living... and then you have people like your parents, in a way they have the house, they have the child, they have each other. Are they happy?
No.
No, they're not. So I think that's what Senkei also meant. Happiness is something that you make out of your own, not that you have to rely someone else will bring. If only I have a girlfriend, I would be happy. If only I had a VR headset, I'd be happy. I mean, sure, maybe happy for a little bit.
That is why... That is why I'm not materialistic. That's why I don't want to be attached to my money.
So that why don't you give me your precious Canadian dollars to me, eh? Oh, actually, I already have them. I'll just run away with it and make a new password and run away with it.
Oh, you should wait for the big payments, Casper. I'm gonna get paid like $100,000.
Yeah.
No.
Well, now here's the kicker. Yandere Dev is still making more money than you do.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Yeah, that was crazy. I'm like, oh my god, I made $1,000 in this past year, and I'm like, oh yes, Yandere Dev makes $3,000 a month.
I love that video how he's explaining a concept that should already have been in the game. I'm like, fix your bugs, fix your graphical issues, fix the AI, fix the path walking, fix the lacking sounds.
What from anything from Phasmophobia Dev? His game got like an award or something.
He's been nominated. You know, like from the Steam Awards.
Did he add anything to game yet?
No, except the prison level that he bought in the Unity store. But he got nominated for the VR headset reward for best VR game in Steam, which I find really weird, because it isn't even that impressive in virtual reality.
It's not really it's not really such a how many unique what's it called? Mechanics does it have as a VR game? I don't think it's really impressive as a VR game. It's an impressive horror game.
Streamers joined, sheep fold. It's that easily. That's why sometimes for indie games it's really important that a streamer catches their eye.
VR chat is a more impressive VR than Phasmophobia. That's really weird.
You do know that VR chat got quite a boost as well because of streamers, right?
Yeah, I know.
That's
But oh well, that's how it's gonna be with this gaming industry.
Indeed.
The whole Asian thing and things moving too fast.
Yeah. ADHD, like a short attention span. Everything needs to go, everything needs to be quick.
Like these, in order to go enough time. Like if they came out on a how the developer of Inside publishes their game. They made a game back in 2010 and then made one 6 years later, and now they're gonna make one 6 years later. There's like a huge amount of time between their games, and they make like absolute perfect games. It's my favorite game of all time, Inside, and there's so much to be had with it. Sure, maybe not everybody feels that way, but if more companies picked that way of development and they released a game and it was really good and it had a lot of effort put into it, and they let it bake for like 3 years or 4 years, and then they released another perfect game. Just like have 10 games on your entire franchise, and that's it. Not like Call of Duty.
Just like what Cyberpunk did, you know. I mean, I really enjoy Cyberpunk quite a lot now, but man, you know the stages of annoyance I had to be put up, and still it could have been just better in all general. I mean,
like there are games that are like that. There's Dark Souls. Ever since it came out, people are playing it, and I'm gonna be playing it for many years from now on. I'm gonna have thousands of hours on it. How does that game like reside with someone so much? Like how can you go back to it so much? Like make games like that and make them less often so people can spend more time on them and appreciate them more, so this whole instant culture doesn't happen. So yeah, it's because these titles, AAA titles especially, are being pumped out every year. There's a new Call of Duty every year. Like that's insane. There's a new title on every franchise every year, and it's just becoming copy paste of the previous ones.
It's also partly
people
because
just don't
it's
want to
also
sit down.
the Call of Duty are often quite small and insignificant when you look at it. It's bare bones, so it's easily to produce, you know. It's not like the older Call of Duty games that you like to play.
Yeah, the older ones, I would go play the very first Call of Duty and like enjoy it so much, rather than to play like I don't know Black Ops 3 or Black Ops 4. Like I would rather go play that. And it looks horrible. It doesn't it's not impressive visually. It's not that impressive audioly, but there's something about it that is more genuine than all these newer ones. So I would always go play it.
How many Minecraft games are there?
Minecraft games?
Yeah, how many did the creator of Minecraft made Minecraft sequels? None. And it's still big play to this day, because it doesn't need one. That's a game done right. Did you went into a Zen state, Karl? I guess I'll read a bit and hang out with the cats. Why is there a bread with the cat? Oh. Ah. Well, I'll stop the recording here. Karl meditated it himself out of existence. Ah, gee.